There is more to water than just being a precious commodity. Hello everyone and welcome to the Navin Times Talk from the Heart. Like I've just said, water, there is much more to it. There are different flavors. And to understand this aspect of water, we have with us Lakshitaa Khanna, India's first female water sommelier. She has traveled a lot, tasted water from different parts of the world, and she has even come up with her own brand, both. It's such a pleasure to be speaking with her. Hello Lakshitaa and welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Lakshitaa, it's such an interesting and exciting topic, water. You normally think water, it's rather blah, there's nothing much more to it. But after reading about you, I've just realized that there is so much more, and I'm sure the audience would love to hear what you have to say. Now, the first question, of course, I'm sure people normally, when you tell them that you are a water sommelier, you must be getting different reactions. Can you share with us how and what are those reactions? How do they react? What do they say?
Whenever I tell someone I'm a water sommelier, the most basic reactions I get is one of astonishment, disbelief. Of course, I get reactions as, are you kidding me? Does such a profession exist altogether, right? Because it's just so unheard of. There are about only a handful of 50 sommeliers in the world. People don't have a generalized idea of what a water sommelier is. We've always heard of wine sommeliers, we've heard of whiskey sommeliers, but we've never heard of a water sommelier. So, and then that creates a lot of curiosity amongst people when I do tell them about my profession. And then I'm bombarded by a bunch of questions that follow after. And I'm hoping through the course of our chat today, I'll be able to answer and clarify the doubts that people have or what they want to really know what a water sommelier is.
Absolutely, absolutely. How would you define, if you were speaking to just about anyone, a layperson who doesn't know anything about wines either, how would you define your profession? In very simple terms, Lakshitaa, so they understand, everyone understands it.
Okay. So just like a wine sommelier, a water sommelier is someone who's able to detect, differentiate and recognize the different types of water available to us all across the globe, right? So from different countries, from different cities, it could be spa towns, so all of it. And most of this is based on the TDS level. So this is really important. So the TDS level is the total dissolved solubles in the water, that is the mineral content in the water, right? And then moving ahead, it's the pH level, which is your potential hydrogen. So pH level actually gives water the imbue of the acidic and the alkaline tones, right? Then it's the hardness level, which is a combination of calcium and magnesium. And then it's your nitrate level. Nitrate level is how well the source is protected from human contamination, human touch. So it's basically how well your source has been protected, right? And then it's carbonation levels. So there's a lot of water that is naturally carbonated, and then there's some that's artificially carbonated. So combining all of these, a water sommelier, like I said, just like a wine sommelier, can be able to differentiate, detect and recognize waters.
So that's very clear. How does this help? How does this help the general public? How would you say that tasting water, understanding its nuances, like a wine, how would this help a person?
So we've been born and brought up always um, reading that water is odorless, it's tasteless, it has no smell.
We learned that in
Something
science,
that
Lakshita. We learned that in
we
science, I
did,
think.
right?
Yes.
Absolutely. And
Yes.
in fact, when you Google it, up until date, it says that water is an odorless. It has no taste, and it's just you just drink it for hydration. But that doesn't stand true, right? One needs to understand that our body is 60% water, right? And one needs to be very careful in choosing the right kind of water, which we call the fine water, in giving our body the right amount of minerals, right? So water holds those minerals, and by holding those minerals, we give our body the nutrition value it needs on everyday basis, so that we don't get mineral deficiency. So we need to firstly get over the myth and then understand water so that we can choose it correctly on or for our daily adequate hydration.
Right. Now, you had started, I think, with fashion designing, and then you went into real estate with your father, and then it was being a water sommelier. What was the reason that you finally chose this profession? What attracted you?
So, I've been born and brought up in Delhi, fashion journalism from the University of NIFT. And then I was given an opportunity to go to Milan to study interior designing. And then I came back and joined my father. So we have long-standing ties with Bhutan for about a decade now. And then I started working with my dad and in the family business. But it was upon my trek to Bhutan with my brother about 4 years back, roughly, is when we came upon a water source, right? And that I feel like was my calling, because I went and tried water right from the source, and the minerals, the richness, the earthiness, all of it, right? It made me realize that, wait, that was a defining moment. I want to bottle this and I want to present it to the world to really know that water is not just a commodity. There is so much more to water that we believe there has been. So that really was my defining and my true calling.
Right. And then you have done a course at the Fine Water Academy, right? And I think the first water sommelier, Martin Rees, was your teacher.
Absolutely. So once I decided that this is what I wanted to do, is educate people on water, present them with the right fine water, and and so that's when I thought that it was the onset of that thought process that made me want to undergo training, educate myself, and understand everything there was to do with water, with Mr. Martin Rees and Michael Mark, learning everything from the guru, as they say it, right? They're the guru of water. So it was one of the most interesting things that I've done, and now I can say that I do believe that I know my water. I know my waters.
Right. But while you were in this academy, in the school that you were studying, where is it based, Lakshita?
It's based out of LA, but I did mine online because we were going through a pandemic at that point, and it was over a course of about a year, I would say, that maybe a little more. So roughly a year and a half that it takes to complete the course, but it was online for me, although it's based out of LA.
And what were the subjects, the modules that you all covered in this year or so?
So I'll tell you, one of the most interesting modules for me was the different sources of water. Right now, that's so interesting because growing up, we didn't know the different sources that were available. Right? We always thought, okay, there's bottled water, there's bottled water, natural mineral water, your water from the RO, and that's really it, right? But there's so much more to that than just these basics. So I learned about the different sources, So I'll give you an example. There was one called, okay, a bunch of them. So there was spring water to begin with. So geologists categorize spring water as water flowing freely through the surface of the earth, right? Then we move on to an example of glacial water. So about 20,000 years back, one third of the earth was covered in glaciers, the remains of which are being tapped today for bottled water. Then there is rainwater, right? So rainwater comes from the most unpolluted parts of the world. The pollution needs to be absolutely negligible, right? So the minute you collect the rainwater, it needs to be bottled immediately so as to avoid contamination,
Right.
right? Then there's sources of exotic sources that we that have been coming up majorly. So that is your fruits and vegetable water, right? Then there's gas water. So gas water is something that is condensed by gas, and you make water out of condensation. And then there's like deep sea water, which comes from the ocean conveyor belt. So that's melted ice that goes through a desalination process and is then bottled for consumption. So these are just so many various sources that one wasn't aware of, and that was a very interesting module to me. And then apart from that, once when I was going through the course and learning and educating myself, is how water can be paired with food. So water and food. Whoever thought about pairing water and food to
Absolutely.
enhance the taste buds, to enhance the palate, to enhance the flavors of the food you're having? We never knew water could do that, right? Who knew that water can actually enhance the taste of your beverages, your mocktails, your cocktails, your wine, coffee, for example, right? So
Right.
coffee is 97% water. So when you do dilute it with, say, a tap water, for example, right, it takes away from the coffee. Coffee should always be mixed and made with mineral water. And
Okay.
depending on the kind of coffee you like, you use different waters for it. So there was just so much that one gets to learn, which is completely unheard of, which is why I get that disbelief and that astonishment when I'm like, oh, I'm a water sommelier.
Absolutely. I mean, you speaking about the different modules is like, oh my God, wow. Does this really, exist? Does it happen?
Exist.
And do you normally we drink water to quench our thirst? We drink water to help in digestion. It's rarely heard that water can actually enhance the flavor, right? And you were talking about the different sources of water, and just to let you know, in Goa we are very blessed to we have lots of springs, and till a few years ago the springs were used in Goa that I know of. People used to go and bathe in it because of all the minerals that were there in it, and it had so many healing properties. So normally if you had a skin ailment or something like that, you were told, go to this spring, bathe in it, and definitely you'll see results. So basically what you are saying is you're just taking this one step further and saying, besides it being good for your body and your skin, it also enhances the taste of water. So that's very, very interesting. Now, you said that when you went to Bhutan and you were at the spring and you tasted the water there, that was like your eureka moment, and you said, this is so amazing, and I want to do something, and I want to show this to the world, I want to take it to the world. How long did it take for you after that incident, that experience, to actually train your palate to taste the different types of water?
So I feel like to tune your palate is something that's a lifelong process, right? So, I mean, of course, one can educate themselves, they can undergo training, right? But unless you experiment and you try different waters and you do your water tasting and your curiosity level continues to stay at the optimum level. One cannot just overnight be like, oh, I trained my palate. No, it's over your travels, it's over trying different waters, it's over experimenting. So it's not like, so water is not like wine. I mean, it doesn't have this simple, it's not as simplified. One needs to really tune their palate. And like I said, one needs to do that by experimenting so many kinds of waters when you're traveling, when you're across the globe, even in India, see what's available, what's not, and just experiment, tune your palate to it, keep doing it. You have to, it cannot just be from a business aspect, it needs to be your passion as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're so right, I suppose, right? Because wine has a very prominent taste. I mean, you drink wine and there is that taste. Whereas water, according to all of us and what we have learned, it is odorless, it is colorless, and it is tasteless. So to discern between the different types of wines, I'm sure takes a lot of work, and you should have that talent to do it.
Absolutely. With water, it's subtle. So you have to really tune yourself to pick out the last hints like that leave as an aftertaste. So that is very challenging. Nothing that cannot be done, but you've got to be, like I said, extremely passionate about it.
Of course. And as a training, I mean, besides the passion, like you rightly said, Lakshita, there's a lot of training, there's a lot of discernment that goes into it. And that must not be coming easy. I mean, it may look easy, but I'm sure it is not. Now, how would you describe the different tastes of water? Do you have a preference in water?
So I'll always say I'm biased towards both, but of course there's so many. One of my favorite waters. Okay, I'll give you my top 5 favorite waters, right? Because it's also different. There's Svalbardi water from the region of Svalbard. Then there's Vichy Catalan, which is again one of my favorite waters. And then there's Roy. Roy I like because it's the only water in the world which is so rich in its magnesium content that there's some people who actually can't even drink it, right? You can't drink it, but the fact that it's so different, I think it has a magnesium level about 1500 and above, right? So you can actually taste the water. All these are so different from each other. Then of course there's Fiji, right, which has a very high silicon content, so it has a very sweet aftertaste. So all these are so different from each other that they have to be one of my few favorites.
I'm sure.
So the TDS level, which is your minerals, right, play the most important role in making one distinguish between the waters. Then comes your pH level, which I said is the potential hydrogen, right? So TDS gives the water the minerality content, which is, okay, so for example, if there's magnesium in the water, right, which is a higher magnesium level in the water, it'll have a bitter aftertaste. Okay, so magnesium gives a bitter aftertaste. Then there is calcium, which gives a chalky, smooth aftertaste. If there's a high level of sodium in the water, the water kind of tastes salty, right? Which of course, I guess with sodium, everyone can put it together. Sodium is salt, so it's simple. And then there's iron, which will give it kind of like a irony, hints of metal, right? So you can actually have a metallic taste when you're drinking the water. So based on all of these come under TDS levels, which is your total dissolved solubles. Then comes the pH level, right? So the higher the pH level, the higher the alkaline level in the water. The lower the pH level is how acidic the water is. But then again, your palate needs to be really tuned to pick out all of these and be able to differentiate between the different kinds of water.
Absolutely, because when we drink what we just drink it, we are not, because we've already been, our brain has been fine-tuned to the fact that water is tasteless and water is odorless. Now you have spoken, speaking about the pH level. You said pH, the higher the pH level, the less acidity. Am I right? Did I get that right?
Yes. Yes.
And the lower the pH level, more acidity.
Absolutely. It's more acidic in its notes on the
Right,
palate.
right. Now, we have heard, I'm sure most of our viewers have heard about acidic water and alkaline water. And I think we've also heard and read that alkaline water is better compared to acidic water for the body, of course. Do you, can you tell us why this is so? Why is it that alkaline water is better?
Yeah. So I actually don't think that is true. One needs to drink. So our body's pH level is between 7 and 7.5%, right? So for everyday consumption, to keep the body balanced with its pH level, one needs to drink neutral pH levels, right? Which is your neutral. So when you can read it. So anything between 6.7 and 7.3 is neutral pH levels, right? Alkaline every now and then works great for the body because you're giving your body the kick that it needs. But would I recommend this water for daily consumption? Absolutely not. Your water daily consumption needs to be, like I said, neutral pH values, right? So that we can keep our bodies balanced. And even with the TDS, it needs to be rich in its mineral content to give our body so we don't get mineral deficiency. So everything needs to be very balanced with the water we are choosing for everyday adequate hydration.
Now, you have given us different waters from all around the world. Is there any water from India that you like?
I would say it would have to be okay. Definitely none of the packaged. We'll come to that, of course. The packaged mineral water bottles that are sold, but we'll get into it. But from India, I would definitely. I think it would be the Himalayan water.
Okay. Now, generally across India, which are some of the minerals that are present in our water? Generally, let's just say at an average, if you take any water from any part of the country, what are some of the minerals that are there?
So some of the minerals that have to be very prominent is your magnesium, your calcium, your sulfates, your sodium. So I'll give you a little brief on what all the minerals do for us in our body. So magnesium looks into our nervous system, right? So the functioning of your brain and your nervous system depends upon magnesium contents, right? Then moving on to calcium, we all know that we've grown up hearing that calcium it's very important for our bones, right? Then coming to sulfates. Sulfates, it aids in the digestion process. It also helps in liver detoxification. And sodium, of course, we all need our
salt
to replenish our bodies. Every day we need the right amount of sodium. So if one is not getting the right amount of sodium from their food, your water needs to give you the balance that to adequately hydrate, like I say, right? Because mineral deficiency can lead to so many problems in the future, like so many ailments.
Right. So
these are the more prominent ones, and of course there's iron, there's sulfates we spoke about. I'm sure, but for me these are the most prominent ones that exist and that need to be very prominent in the water I'm going to pick out.
Okay, Lakshita, is so interesting what you're saying, really interesting. But before we continue, let's take a small break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back speaking with Lakshita in just a few minutes. Welcome back to the Navin Times Talk from the Heart. We are in conversation with Lakshitaa Khanna, India's first female water sommelier. So Lakshita, we were speaking about the different minerals, the TDS, I'm right? TDS levels as well as the pH levels. Now, India has several sources of water. And tell us about your explorations. Which are the waters you've tasted, which you liked, and even tell us which you did not like and why.
So I've been very fortunate enough to travel around India and taste different sources of water. One of my something very close to my heart was my trip to Ladakh, right? Where they create these ice stupas, and ice stupas are something that is artificially made. So they are artificial glaciers which they make over the winter, right? And the second hits summer, and they make for the supply of the agriculture. And it's just, so what I saw was a piece of creativity and art put together by Mr. Sonam Wancho. And it is one of the most interesting things to see, a mechanical glacier which they put together during the winter, just for the summer to come through, because water gets very scarce, right? And it was just stunning to see, because we're not aware, I don't know how many people are aware of an ice stupa, and it's fairly something new. But just the concept behind it was absolutely stunning. And
all right.
And then there was another very like something very close to my heart was my trip to Kashmir. So Kashmir just has so many beautiful springs and streams that are free flowing, and they're just so magical. Like, you just want to go ahead, drink it right from the stream, the spring, and the richness that it holds. It actually makes you feel, you feel the sense of euphoria, which is very rare to feel when you're just drinking off a stream anywhere, right? Which is the reason that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru used to call for his water from Chashme Shahi, which is a spring in Srinagar back then.
Okay.
Because it was meant to hold medicinal values and components, right? So maybe Kashmir has that kind of magical essence. We all believe that it does, because even if back then it happened, and I felt the same way, there's definitely more to the water than we believe there is. And of course, in the Himalayas, I feel like the water in the Himalayas is something that I would compare to the water in the most secluded, untouched parts of the world. So the Himalayan range as well, which is why we're coming up with our new plant within the Himalayan range.
Okay, that's your company. Is that both you're talking about?
We're doing both, yes. So that's a new plant we are coming up within the Himalayan range, because I went and tested and tasted the waters, did my bit of hiking, and it's just, like I said, purely magical.
It's so nice to see the enthusiasm, and the way you sing magical. It brings to mind magic. It really does. So yes. Now, what is that one striking common difference that you have found? Okay, that between the waters in a place like in India, this is one major difference. In Europe, this is one difference. Is there something like that with water as well?
No, so I'll tell you. No water, absolutely no water holds, unless you're coming from the same source, holds unique characteristics. Every water is different. And this all comes from, like I said, the terra, which is the territory.
The soil. Yes.
The story, the soil, all of this makes water, the TDS level, the pH, your nitrate, your carbonation, a lot of the natural carbonation that takes place in water happens due to volcanic activities, right? So there's so much, so no water will have similar characteristics.
All right.
That's the one basic difference that we all know.
So every region has something different. Does this hold true about the different states in India?
Yes, absolutely. I would believe so that it holds true for the different states in India as well, because I'm sure Delhi has a different source altogether, or a place in Himachal would have a different source. Bombay would have different kind of water with, I'm guessing, seawater with a bit of a higher sea content, salt
Sodium
content,
content.
right?
Yeah.
So sodium content.
Yeah.
So every state, I definitely believe, has, because like I said, it's the territory and the soil that it comes from. So every state, be it Punjab, be it Delhi, be it Bombay, be it other parts of India, definitely holds, the water is very different uh, within each city.
Now, I know that you come to Goa very often. I know you like Goa a lot. How would you compare the water in Delhi to the water in Goa?
Goa has 11 rivers, from what I've read, and these rivers are getting contaminated with each day, and they need to really preserve these rivers, right? Because, but what I did notice, and when I am in Goa, and I do spend a lot of time in Goa, there is no option of natural mineral water available to the consumers. So you only, Goa only has packaged drinking water, which is not, like we've discussed. Packaged drinking water is not good for our health, right? So we're not getting the adequate. That's nothing but packaged water, right?
So it's basically
So this,
purified water. It is all the essential elements that are supposed to be there and make water good are not
so
there.
basically, it goes for osmosis process and a
Yes.
filtration process. So what
Right.
happens in that filtration process is it kills the germs and the bacteria, but it also kills the minerals. And when it's killing the minerals, you're having water which is absolutely zero in nutrition value. So when I was in Goa, and like I said, because I spent so much time there is no choice of water that is available. And I won't name it, uh, what is mostly available there, but that needs to change at some point, which is why I'm so thankful for a platform like yours.
And we are happy to have someone like you. The topic is so interesting, Lakshita, really interesting. Now, you have spoken about food pairing. We know there is
Yeah,
food pairing with wine.
yeah.
So, water pairing with food and water pairing. How does that? Can you just give us the basic guidelines for this?
Absolutely. So I put together something for our viewers today, right?
Lovely.
So, yeah. So, okay, to make it very simplified for all of us. So, when you talk about water and food pairing, water needs to enhance your palate, the flavors of the food. So, I'm going to start by simply talking about a white wine, right? Let's start with. Um, so, when you think of white wine, you always must always pair it with still water. Still water will never take white wine will never take away from the flavors of the white wine, right? So still water, low TDS content, right? So it's not it's not taking away from the white wine, because white wine is much lighter anyways, right? When you speak about red wine, for example, it's much more heavier on the palate with its aroma and the flavors. So you must always pair it with a water of medium to high minerality. By minerals we mean the TDS content, to enhance the flavors of the red wine. So, in fact, everyone who's hearing this, right, all our viewers should try this. Even though we don't have as much availability in India with waters, but I'm sure we'll be able to find something. But we must try this, because I've done it, and it really does add to it enhances the flavor, right? And now let's talk about a few of the
Food
dishes. We
items.
can
Yeah.
absolutely. So, okay. So let's start with super low, right? And I'll give you a little. I'll give you um, the percentage of what super low TDS lies within. So that's between 0 and 50, right? So your super low TDS is between 0 and 50, and we should pair this with very light dishes like sashimis, sushi, salad that doesn't need taking away from the palate and their taste, right? And doesn't need adding on to it as well. So something that you can just pair it with very low TDS. You're enjoying your food at the same time. The water's not doing much to it, but it complements it, right? Then we come to something which is of low minerality, which falls between 50 and 250 mg, right? And this you can pair with, uh, again, very subtle aroma dishes, like maybe a very subtle light fish, very subtle light, maybe just pan seared calamari, something with not too many spices going on and not too much flavor, right? Then we move on to medium minerality, which is between 250 and 800. So this is your medium minerality water, and this will go really well with a, a pork item or a veal or a chicken or your soft cheeses, for example, right? And then we talk about high minerality, which is between 800 and 1500. And this will go absolutely fantastically with your beef, with your bitter vegetables, with hard cheeses, and it just adds to the flavors. So one must actually try this at home whenever we can get a chance of um, getting different TDS levels of water. One must try this and we'll see actually how it adds or takes away from the dishes that we're combining them with. And then
Okay.
there is very high minerality, which is 1500 and above, right? Which goes amazingly well with your dark chocolates, your game meats, your lamb. So, yeah, I would really request my viewers, because I really try to simplify it, that they do try it at home at some point when they can.
Okay. Now, you come to Goa all the time. Do you eat Goan food?
Korean food is my absolute favorite.
That's lovely. So,
Yeah.
you are which is your favorite Goan dish?
My favorite Goan dish has to be any seafood for that matter. It just has to be made with a lot of Goan spices. Few of
Okay.
those typical Goan spices, and one that I'll always run to is my. It's not an authentic Goan dish, but it's my lobster with Goan spices together.
Okay. If you are having the lobster, you're sitting on a nice beach or by a beautiful river in Goa, and you're having your lobster with the Goan spices, which water would you pair with it?
Okay, so it really depends, and it depends on your palate. So I, as an Indian, right, I'm extremely accustomed to spicy food, right? And if someone tells me that, okay, so if it was for me or generalized our viewers who like spicy food and in fact want to enhance the taste of the spices, I would tell them to go completely contradictory and pair it with a nice bottle of uh, water which has bubbles. So it could be a bottle of Perrier, which is your classic bubbles, or efficient bubbles, right, to enhance it. So those bubbles are actually enhancing the flavors on our palate. But if there's someone who's traveling, like a tourist who's not accustomed to the kind of spices we do enjoy eating, a nice bottle of Fiji, which has high silicone content, which will give it a sweet aftertaste. So it'll balance the spices with a sweetness, with a
All
hint of
right.
sweetness.
Okay.
So it
Fine.
depends on person. So either pick out your bubbles or pick out very subtle, sweet aftertaste water.
Do you have any tips to give our viewers on how to best enjoy water?
Absolutely. So as a water sommelier, I believe that one must always enjoy their water at room temperature,
Okay.
right? At room temperature. If we were to have cold or chilled water, it should not exceed more than 16 to 19 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
The second you're doing that, you're taking away from the taste of the water, right? So it's not the actual taste that remains. So between 16 and 19 is what, or 55 degrees Fahrenheit is what one should drink their water at. If wanted chilled or cold, then there is okay. If you want to enjoy your water, I'm not speaking about arc nemesis or hydration, not hydration, sorry, or health benefits. I'm just speaking about purely about enjoying water and the different kinds of water. Never add lemon to your water. The lemon is completely obstructing the balance and the palate and the taste of the water that we're trying to taste and enjoy. Right? Of course, does one do that on everyday basis? It's meant to be very healthy. I'm only speaking about how one should enjoy their water in terms of trying different kinds of water and experimenting and stuff, right?
Okay.
And if you're adding ice, or this I believe to be true even when you're not experimenting, right? If you're adding ice, it cannot be made out of tap water.
Oh.
You're adding, yeah, it shouldn't be. It needs to be made, it needs to be frozen and made out of the water that you're actually consuming. How can you put two different sources of water into one? It's absolute, as a water sommelier, I am absolutely against that.
So I'm just clarifying this point. So basically,
Yes.
what you're saying is, I drink water from my purifier, right? I use the water that is there in my purifier, and I use it. I put it into my bottles. I keep it in the fridge. So if I'm making ice, it has to be from the same source, from the water purifier. Is that? Have I got it right?
Yes, you've got it absolutely right. Because there's so many times I see people that they just fill it out from maybe a tap or a different source of boiled water or whatever, whatever's available, but it's not the water they're drinking. You can never mix two different sources of water into one.
Okay, right. So I'm going to summarize for our viewers and also exhibit my good memory, of course. But first is, Lakshita said, do not drink water if you're really enjoying the water. I know that the summer's on and the heat is, it's crazy. But if you really want to enjoy the water, do not have it cold, do not have it chilled. And the second one is, do not add lime because it takes away the flavor of the water. And the third one is that the ice, if it's being used in water, should be from the same source. So am I right? Have I got it right?
Absolutely.
So full marks to me. All right. Moving to my next question. How do you plan, because I know you're on this mission to make people understand that there is so much more to water than just quenching our thirst. So how do you think you can make, change people's perspective and bring about that change?
So I feel like education and awareness go hand in hand. One needs to educate that change comes with people like myself, like yourself, with our viewers, with platforms, with like yours, with social media, with everyone taking a stand and realizing that water is not just water. 3/4 of our earth is covered in water, but because of the global, with the global and the climate change and everything, our water system and the water cycles are all getting disrupted. Right? 50% of India does not have clean water to drink.
Absolutely.
So, absolutely. So whether it's the rich or it's the underprivileged, the education and the awareness needs to be spread jointly with all of us coming together, that one needs to realize that water is life. And as a water sommelier, of course, in the future, there'll be an economic value on water, right? We all know that's coming up. We're not too far away from it.
In
What
fact,
do we talk?
saw
Yeah,
something on TV the other day where in the share market there was something on water. So, yes, you're right,
absolutely.
Lakshita.
And so from the economic value coming in, as a water sommelier, I can only place an emotional value on it, right? Because water and I emotionally connect, and water is life. So we all jointly have to come together through the means of social media, or whether it's going deep into the villages and making them realize that we have to look into the water, we need to preserve it and not contaminate it, and loved as purely as we can.
Right, right. Do you there are places like in China, London, and I think it's Los Angeles where I read that they have something called a water menu. Do you think Delhi,
Lot,
Mumbai, Bangalore, cities like that, the metros are ready for water menu, knowing that we have water shortage, which you rightly pointed out, and there are people who do not have, clean drinking water. So you take that on one hand, and then you have it's so extreme, like in countries like in places that I've just mentioned that they have a water menu. Do you think our country is ready for that?
yes, absolutely. And I'll tell you why I think our country is ready for it. Right? Is our knowledge is so limited to what we see in our supermarket, is what we are asked in a restaurant. What would you like? I won't name the water, but it's two options. Barely,
Yes.
sometimes even one option, right? We're never asked whether we want still or sparkling. That maybe at some more high end, or some restaurants that are more conscious, but in general we are never asked. It's one water, and that's why as Indians our knowledge is so limited to water, right? So the second, and water sales have been proven to increase the sales of water by 400% in these restaurants. So it's a
Right.
study that's been done. So obviously you're doing an increase within the hospitality industry. But at the same time, when someone sees a water menu, they're intrigued, they're curious, they want to know, and that's when they'll go ahead and they'll read about water, right? And that's how awareness is generated. So not only is it helping with the hospitality industry, it's also helping us people who dine out. I'm not saying you have to be in the most expensive of restaurants. You could be in a lovely, comfortable restaurant and still have a nice, cute water menu out there. But will we speak about it? Absolutely. We'll be like, wait, what's a water menu? Right? Wait, what is TDS level? Because a water menu consists of a small description of where the water comes from, which is the terra, the soil, a background. Then you talk about the TDS, the pH level, the price point. And if there's a water sommelier on board, they can always come and help you combine them with the dishes as you have a wine sommelier on board. Will that generate curiosity? Absolutely. Will that give us more knowledge? Will that make us want to read more on water? Yes. So I do believe, um, of course, with the help of the government, because the rules and regulations for imports and exports are very it's a bit tedious. I don't know. So yeah, of course, with the help of the government, we would be ready in the coming few. We should be ready. Like the future looks like it's ready. Absolutely.
Lakshita, as I've said, it has been such an interesting topic. I've learned so much. I don't think I am going to look at water in the same way. I have a small cup of water here, but now I'm going to try and see if I can detect any mineral. Maybe, I don't know. Fingers crossed. Maybe I will. And you have helped us to, I'm sure even our viewers, to look at water differently. It has really been interesting speaking with you, Lakshita, and
Thank you.
learning a lot, more than just enjoying speaking with you. I think we've learned so much, and I would like to say thank you to you, and we would also like to thank all our viewers for watching, for your time, for your patience, and until next time, from all of us here at the studio and from the Navin Times, take care and thank you.